Hey, it's Ashley from Westcott, and today I'm going to be going over a lighting breakdown from a recent stylized portrait shoot. So before I get into this lighting breakdown, if you're new to our channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn bell notifications. That way you can be the first to know when we post videos. So the goal for this shoot was to create two very different looks for my model's folio. But both of these I wanted to be disco inspired. The first was a vintage 80s glam inspired look, and the second one I wanted a more modern, full and colorful look but still keeping that disco feel. So for the first look, since I was aiming for an 80s glam look, I decided I wanted to use a very hard main light source, almost to mimic a stage or a spotlight. I also knew since I wanted that staged look, having a very strong hair light from both sides, my subject would help. So with this in mind, I started by placing my lights. I began by placing my main light, an FJ400, to the left of my subject, modified by a 45-degree deep focus reflector. This gave me a very tight beam angle and that hard light source I was looking for. This way I can get deep shadows and harder transitions into highlights and shadows. I then added two hair lights to both sides of my subject. This added to that spotlight look that I was aiming for, but also helped separate my subject from the background. For the hair lights, I chose to use two FJ200 strobes with reflectors and grids. That way I can minimize light flare from hitting my camera lens. So after taking a few test shots, I quickly noticed that because of the space I was in, the front of the disco ball was just reflecting black and didn't actually look like it was being lit. To help brighten the wall, I pointed two FJ400 strobes at the cyc wall. That way it reflected a little bit more light into the ball. This way, instead of the ball reflecting the black colors of the surrounding walls, it would reflect the white from the cyc. If you don't have a studio with a cyc wall, you can always do the same thing with a white background. Because of this, what I initially thought was going to be a 3-light setup ended up being a 5-light setup. So finally, to add a little bit more interest to my photos, I played around with adding a star filter to the front of my lens. The star filter makes it so that any light shining back into the camera would turn into a star, which you can really see in the disco balls and in the shine of her dress. I also played around with adding a bit of a diffraction grading sheet to the front of my lens. This is going to add some distortion and rainbow highlights to some of the photos. So since I didn't want this on my model's face, I simply just cut a hole in the middle of the sheet. That way, only the edges would be affected by it. So by using these two creative tools, I was able to get some really cool in-camera effects. For the next look, I was aiming for a modern, colorful look, but still wanted to incorporate that disco ball element. While planning for the shoot, I had an idea to use some mirrors to help create an interesting light pattern behind my subject. I had this mirrored prism that I had created from a previous shoot, and I made it by gaff taping 3 mirrors together to create a triangle prism shape. And I thought that if I shined a light through it, I could create some real interesting light and textures on the back wall. So I started by setting that up on a table and placed an FG80 inside. I chose to use a smaller light instead of a more powerful light like the FJ400 because for this look, I would get more control of the FG80. Also, because of its flat head design, it was ideal for the situation, since it would give me a smaller beam angle compared to the FJ400, resulting in crisper lines in the background. Plus, since the FG80 is a speedlight with a head capable of zooming, I could quickly change how the background is looking by either zooming in or out, giving me further control. I aimed the center of the prism at my model so that the brightest part of the pattern would light up my subject and draw attention to her. I brought back the FJ400 with a deep focus reflector that I had used in the previous shot, just to add some extra light to my subject's face. I made sure to place my light far enough to the side that the shadow cast by this light would not fall in the frame. Since I already had a shadow from the mirrored light hitting my subject, it was important for me to place my light far enough to the side. That way I was only getting one shadow and keeping the lighting as natural as possible. When placing a light this far off to the side, I always let my model know that they need to favor that side when they're posing. That way the light is always flattering and what I intended. Finally, I placed another FJ400, and this one I added a blue gel to the front of the light, just to add some color to the scene. This is going to fill in all the shadows with blue light, and was giving the background and the shadows that blue color. Finally, I kept on the star filter from the last shot, just to add a little more sparkle to the dress and disco ball. One of the key factors of the shoot was being able to use the FJ wireless system. Throughout the shoot, I was able to use multiple different strobes, each with its own benefit. This way I was able to choose the strobe that I thought was right for the job. But what is great about the FJ system is I don't have to worry about things like color temperature and inconsistencies between the different strobes. Since every FJ light has a consistent color temperature of 5500 Kelvin, they are all designed to work flawlessly with the FJ-X2M trigger. This made it so I could quickly control and change the power level of each light directly from the trigger on my camera and made it so I can move quickly in between the two looks. So let me know in the comments below which of these two looks you like the best, and as always, thanks for watching.